Good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday. Welcome once again to Not the Revenge Garden, but hopefully we'll be back out there soon after some repairs. I have some wonderful excerpts to share with you today, so we're going to dive right in, starting with A.M. Kusi's Risking Forever. The sound from Ariel's TV show was the only noise in the room for a few minutes. Elise shifted on her feet, extremely uncomfortable with the situation. Anger at her ex for putting her in this position burned her veins. Ariel was a wonderful little girl, but Elise wasn't so sure about Roman. She didn't want to stay in his house, but she didn't have much of a choice. This was the only solution to her problem, so for now, she'd have to grin and bear it. Roman sighed and shook his head. Guess you're hired. Yippee. Promise I'll take care of your daughter and keep her safe and happy while you're gone. I appreciate it. What's your work schedule like? It just depends on what needs to be done in the yards. I'm always home to tuck her in bed by 8. I'm home for dinner as often as possible, but summer is the busiest time for my bee business. Bee business? Yikes. She nodded. Okay, and what are your expectations for me, other than the obvious take care of and entertain Ariel? I know she has some therapy appointments your mom mentioned. Yeah, you can have weekends off, and I'd like her to start practicing things she'll need to learn for school in the fall. She already knows quite a bit. We worked a lot this winter together. She's actually reading Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur series for the second time. That's awesome. And the list of expectations is very doable, she agreed. You said you're a teacher? I was. I took a few years off. But as I mentioned, I'll be at the grade school in the fall. Is that where Ariel's going to be? Yeah. I'm sure I'll get to see her then. He cleared his throat. When you're with Ariel, can you please have your CI on? Yes, sir. Roman blinked and his jaw pulsed like he was grinding his teeth. Did Mom tell you anything about her situation? Elise tipped her head to the side. Just that she's mute and that her mom was, that there's an investigation going on about her. He shook his head. My brother Nash's ex-fiancée was murdered. My wife, he cleared his throat and looked towards Ariel in the living room. Passed of natural causes. Way to stick my foot in my mouth. I'm so sorry. This family had been through more than one tragedy, it seemed. It's important that if she needs someone, you're right there. She can't be left alone again when she needs help. Do you understand? His voice left no room for misinterpretation. This was gravely important to him. Curiosity bubbled inside her. This seemed like more than just a helicopter parenting. It's not a problem. I'll have my implant on and keep a close eye on her at all times. We'll have a fun summer. I brought some things for us to do together. I'm excited to get to know Ariel and explore her favorite spots. He ground his jaw. His gaze flashed as he stepped forward, tilting his chin to look her directly into the eyes as he pointed towards the living room. His voice grew quieter and serious. That little girl in there is everything to me, and I won't let anything bad happen to her. So if I feel like she's endangered in any way, you will be fired. His protectiveness and love of his daughter were his redeeming qualities, even though his faith in her ability made her hackles rise. Understood. Roman's pink tongue darted out as he licked his lips. He ran a hand over his head, his muscles bunching with the movement, but her gaze was caught on his veiny forearm. Good God, why did he have to be so good looking? Elise? Yeah. Her voice came out breathier than she'd intended. You're just here to watch my kid. His voice was cold, devoid of any emotion. Yanking her out of her lust-induced haze, she blinked up at his severe expression. Clearing her throat before she spoke, she gave him a curt nod. Of course. I'll be sure to stay out of your way otherwise. Elise was the help. She just needed to remember that. That is A.M. Kusi's Risking Forever. And now, hopping over to our next excerpt, Toni Andderson's Cold Silence. Another feed was added to the main screen. This showed footage from the helmet cam of one of the HRT operators in the field. They reached the parking lot of the warehouse and were climbing out, immediately arranging themselves around the front door of the building. Yael's heart slammed against her ribs. Maybe they could save Anya. Maybe she could help catch this bastard. With a quick look at her boss, she went back to the code. I don't see any vehicles at the warehouse, the HRT operator stated. Yael looked at yet another screen, and it showed the overhead view of the building, presumably from a drone. She realized that the third HRT operator in the room was flying that drone. What's wrong with the code? Her current shadow prompted her again. I don't know. She blinked and checked the time on her computer. What time did that auction go live? 12:03, Alex said. Why? How long's it been running? 25 minutes. He usually spends at least an hour with each victim, Alex replied. Sweat ran down the side of her face as Yale grimaced. It felt like only a few seconds to her, but to Anya Baker, it was probably 3 lifetimes. What's bothering you? The HRT guy who'd latched onto her pushed again. A shiver crawled up her spine. Reluctantly, she said, the timing's off. The running time of the code and the start time don't match. It's all out of whack somehow. The HRT operators on screen were following a dog now. The dog was given Anya's scent, the guy explained. He's great at finding people. Which was also her job, although she didn't use her nose. She frowned. I think the feed is delayed. I don't think this is live, she burst out, even though it didn't make sense. Alex frowned at her. How do you explain the live voting? Maybe he's rigging the system? Yale pressed her lips together. She didn't know, but something felt off. They all turned their attention back to the black-clad operators on the screen. Yale glanced at the feed of Evil Genius. Her stomach heaved when she saw what he was doing to Anya with a drill. From the way the woman's body was jerking and she recoiled from the pain, suggested that she was conscious and totally aware of everything that bastard was doing to her. We've got him now, the man beside her touched her upper arm. I'm Shane, by the way. She glanced at him. She didn't need to know his name. She'd hopefully never see him again after today. She frowned at the data. She could hear the other HRT guys through the microphone, the slight huff of their breath, the muffled movements from their gear, but she couldn't hear the sound of a woman being tortured in the background. Evil Genius's feed was still playing in silence, but presumably Anya was actually making a lot of noise. Maybe Evil Genius worried that the victim might scream out clues of his identity or somehow miraculously rip off his mask. Maybe that's what the weird delay was all about. He could run over and stop filming and edit out the bits that may give away clues to his identity, like a super dark version of the Oscar bloopers. But the silence coming through the HRT mic was puzzling, unless Evil Genius had somehow soundproofed the room. The operators lined up 3 on either side of the door. A guy with a breacher stepped forward. Shane muttered something that sounded suspiciously like, "That's my job, motherfucker," under his breath. "Can you hear her?" Yale blurted out. Did they hear anything? Shane spoke up, his voice carrying to his boss. The team leader looked back at them and shook his head, all quiet. Her HRT shadow frowned. That's weird. One guy used his finger to count down. The guy with the breacher started to swing. Boss, tell them to wait, Shane began. Alex, Yale said. An enormous explosion caused the live feed from the HRT operator's helmet to turn the whole screen white and the noise to roar, then fall abruptly silent. There was a split second of stunned quiet before Shane jumped to his feet and joined his teammates across the room. What the fuck just happened? Scotty, Cowboy, report. Chaos erupted around her as everyone tried to figure out what had gone wrong. Had anyone been hurt? Was Anya alive? Had they caught Evil Genius, or was he still on the loose? Ambulances were already on the way. She could hear the frantic shouting of someone yelling Scotty to stay with them over the HRT feed. The HRT operators were scrambling. We need eyes. What the fuck is going on over there? I need a vehicle, Shane shouted. He dragged his right hand over his features, clearly struggling to rein in his emotions. A local agent ran towards Shane, and they rushed out of the room. Tim left, looking as if he were about to throw up. Alex exchanged a look with Yale. His expression was calmly furious. Is it the right place, or did we get played? She had no idea. The feed from the right-hand side continued to show Evil Genius doing his gruesome worst with a box cutter, as if nothing had disturbed him. What's the status of the HRT operators? Alex called out to the tactical team leader. The man's expression was stony. Several casualties, one serious. Yale's fingers clenched. This was her fault. She'd missed something. Can I see the inside of the room? Alex's voice was rough. Is this the right place? Did they arrest this bastard, or is he in the wind? Yale shot Alex a look. She wanted answers too, but the people on the other side were dealing with what sounded like severe injuries. She watched the images now coming online from several of the operators' helmet cams. One black-clad man was on the ground being treated by another. It was the guy who'd held the breacher, the guy who'd taken Shane's place because Shane had broken his arm. It looked bad. Tears blurred her vision, but she blinked them away. She needed to figure out what the hell had happened. Someone wearing a camera looked inside the room, and sure enough, a gurney sat there, complete with dripping remains of what had surely been Anya Baker, but no unsub. No Evil Genius. He's not here. There's a laptop here playing a video of him torturing the girl, but the unsub is not here. Repeat, unsub not here. The words crackled over the comms. Damn it, Alex ground his teeth together. You were right, the bastards recorded it. He makes everyone think it's live and they have a say in what's happening during the auction, but they're all being conned. He's already made up his mind of what to do and what the polls will say. The live aspect of this auction is nothing but a fake poll. That was the least of this man's crimes. Yale fought nausea. Anya Baker had likely been dead before they'd even had a chance to save her. Even so, Yale felt as if her guts had been ripped out. She'd failed. He's never booby-trapped a crime scene before, Ashley Chen pointed out sharply. Yale banded her arms across her stomach and leaned back in her chair. Sweat formed on her skin and she started to shake as if she'd run a marathon. I think it was different this time, she gritted out. I think he knew we were coming. Suddenly, the camera light on her laptop turned green and she found herself staring directly into the masked face of the so-called evil genius. Ice flashed in a cold wave over her skin. He'd somehow gotten into her system and taken control of her camera. He wasn't in that room with Anya Baker anymore. He was somewhere else entirely. Somewhere he felt safe. This bastard, who everyone else could see as her screen was being fed to the other large monitor, was staring right at her. He could see her face, and she couldn't breathe. That is Toni Andderson's Cold Silence. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your weekend, a fabulous long weekend if you get the day off tomorrow. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.